This video was made possible by great viewers like you over on Patreon. Check out the description or end of the video to learn how you can support this series and get some great rewards as well. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goomba here, and welcome back to another episode of Yokai Hunters, where Japanese monster and media meet to unravel the origins of gaming and anime's coolest characters. You know, one of the things that I love about breaking down inspirations in games, and particularly in the Zelda franchise, is the fact that just one small aspect can carry with it an insane amount of cultural inspiration. I remember a long time back when I still worked for the Game Theorist channel, we broke down the catfish from Link to the Past. Yeah, the catfish of all things. But came to discover that not only it, but its location, the Quake medallion it gives you, all of it was tied to the Onamazu, a giant yokai catfish said to be responsible for all the earthquakes in Japan.
Since then, we've been keeping an eye out for other yokai inspirations within Zelda, and let's just say there's far more than enough to do a miniseries on.
But with the release of the absolutely adorable looking remake of Link's Awakening, I want to talk about one particular yokai of the franchise that really made me scratch my head as a kid, the raccoon from the Mysterious Forest. Now you gotta understand, I was 10 when I first saw this thing. I mean, sure, we're in a forest, it's a raccoon, it's fine, but then I thought, why is it spazzing around like that? How was it able to start me all the way back at the beginning of the forest map, and why is it so happy trolling me? And why in the world was it just Terran transformed the entire time? Several confusing questions for a 10-year-old. At the time, I just shrugged it off, but little did I know that in about 3 minutes of this Game Boy game, I was introduced to nearly every single aspect of folklore Japan had to offer when it came to their number one yokai, the Tanuki.
We've already delved quite a bit into the folklore of these thicky boys back on our video about Tom Nook and his theoretical thieving ways. Be sure to check that out if you haven't. But what we covered in that 11-minute video was but a fraction of the lore that Tanuki possessed throughout Japan's history. Tanuki were more than just personal grifters, with big ultra-malleable nuts and the ability to transform leaves into the illusions of valuables like cash, gems, and gold. They could create auditory illusions as well. As cited in Michael Foster's The Book of Yokai, Tanuki were also adept at leading people astray by imitating sounds, creating what we might call sonic mirages. They are particularly notorious for making uncanny drumming noises by thumping their ample bellies, aka Haratsuzumi. The purpose of this illusion is to confuse nighttime travelers into thinking that there's a Matsuri festival or some big performance going on nearby, as the pon poko pon sound of Suzumi drums are used for accompaniment to everything from Noan kabuki performances to Minyo folk music. But as the traveler searches in vain for the source of the music, they lose their way, which has the Tanuki rolling on the ground laughing at their misfortune. As far as officially recorded cases of Tanuki gut percussion, there was one official report in the Choya Shimbun newspaper in 1882. A shamisen player and his student in the town of Aiwa in Kyoto started hearing a Suzumi drum from nowhere during their practice. Through the rest of the day and well into the night, they played along with the mysterious drummer, only to later discover a body of a Tanuki in the same field that they practiced the next morning, with its belly bruised and furless. Many believe that the Tanuki was none other than the mysterious drummer itself, having played so long that it literally drummed its belly to death.
Now let's jump back into Link's Awakening. In the original game, it looks like this monstrous raccoon is just thrashing left and right, but look at the position of the hands. One up and one near its belly, rotating back and forth. Is it drumming? Well, if you had any doubts, the remake of Link's Awakening for the Switch confirms that, yes, it is actually swinging its arms left and right on its big fat belly. And what sound is it making? Exactly that of a Suzumi drum. In fact, parallel to the folklore, you can actually hear the Suzumi drum sound long before you actually run into the mysterious woods raccoon. But then there's the matter of the raccoon's big trick itself, claiming that, quote, "you're going to be lost thanks to me," and sure enough, if you try to continue north, in traditional Lost Woods fashion, you get sent right back to the beginning of the map. So we've talked a lot in the past about a Tanuki's ability to cast illusions on itself and other items to appear different, but what about entire landscapes?
Well, according to the Book of Yokai, quote, "the Tanuki's shape-shifting talents are used not just to transform itself, it can also reshape the landscape. Many local legends, for example, concern someone walking home after a night of sake drinking and getting hopelessly lost in familiar terrain that's been magically transformed by a playful tanuki. In one specific story from the book, Michael Dylan Foster retells a, quote, true story from a man in his 70s on an island in Kagoshima Prefecture dating back as little as the 1930s. You want to take this one?
Sure. Of course, there's absolutely no way there can be a train on this island, but in spite of that, this guy's asleep, and in those days bathrooms were outside. So this guy wakes up in the middle of the night and goes out to the toilet, and he hears the ching-ching sound of a train. He's never seen a train before, never even heard the ching-ching sound of a train before, and he thinks, wow, that's a train, and he runs and leaps on board. The train gradually goes along the coast as he hears,
"This is Chugoya Baba. Are there any departing passengers?"
and the guy thinks, I'm already on board, so I might as well ride to the last station, which turned out to be the rocky shore of Suwajinja Shrine on the other side of the island. Meanwhile, his wife back at home is thinking, he went out to the bathroom and hasn't come home yet. They were just newlyweds, so she's wondering what could have happened. So she called the fire department and the search begins. When they finally found the guy, he tells them proudly, hey, I came out here by train. That's the story. No one's really sure what it was, but it was probably a tanuki. There's a lot of people tricked by tanuki, so it was likely a tanuki for sure. Riveting story, right? But in essence, according to this folk story, a single tanuki had tricked a man into traveling from one side of the Kagoshima island all the way to the other thinking he was on a fast-moving train, manipulating the entire environment to do so. So would it then be so far-fetched to have a tanuki trick a guy into merely traveling from one side of a forest to another at great speeds? I mean, that's exactly what happens with Link. He's confronted by a tanuki, and then he's whisked all the way back to the start of the mysterious forest, just like the Kagoshima man. Finally, there's the last factor to take into account with the raccoon in the mysterious woods. When Link sprinkles magic powder on the raccoon, it spins and bounces all over the place until in a puff of smoke, it transforms back into Taran, one of the Mabe villagers of the island. Once he's returned to his original form, he just bluntly states that, the last thing I can remember was biting into a big juicy toadstool. Then I had the darndest dream. I was a raccoon. Look, I don't know what kind of voice he has.
Now, most people may think this is just a wild and goofy aspect of the game, but this is not the first time a person was believed to be possessed by a tanuki. In the pre-modern days of Japan, tanuki were not only believed to be tricksters of illusion, but were also tsukimono, creatures with the power to inspirit and possess humans. Most of the time, this was done in revenge for destroying an animal yokai's home, family, or even just as a goofy prank. And stories of tanuki possession, known as tanukitsuki, were no rare tale. People who were afflicted with tanukitsuki started off acting normally enough, but in time, the personality traits of the victim began to change. According to Matthew Meyer's The Hour of Meeting Evil Spirits, people possessed by a tanuki developed unexplained illnesses, overtalkative behavior, and even became violent. But there was one trait that everyone affected developed: gluttony. Victims of tanukitsuki became obsessed with eating and eating and eating, even consuming spoiled food. While the nutrition goes to the possessing tanuki spirit, the calories go into the host, making them fatter and fatter, just like the tanuki that possessed them. If left untreated, the victim will also start to sprout tanuki-like properties, like small ears or a tail alongside their wide waistline, eventually turning into the tanuki that possessed them and effectively losing their humanity.
Now let's consider Taran in Link's Awakening. In his transformed state, we see that he's 1. Very talkative, considering he yammers on about tricking us when we haven't said a word. 2. Definitely has become much fatter than his original form. And 3. After he transforms back, the last thing he can recall doing was munching on a big toadstool. Is it possible then that Taran had already been possessed by this raccoon and was continuously looking for anything to eat until he finally transformed? I mean, there's no solid proof that that's the case, but it sure does seem suspicious.
Man, it really does go to show that yokai are freaking everywhere now. Link's Awakening was released in 1993 in the US, long before the word yokai even touched American soil. Yet, here we are staring down one of the best examples from the most popular yokai in Japan in a 26-year-old video game.
And like I said, this is only the beginning, guys. With the Halloween season making its round, I'm really tempted to go through every single yokai-inspired creature in the Zelda franchise and break each one of them down. But I'm gonna leave that up to the patrons to decide. After all, they are the reason I'm able to keep making content here on YouTube. And if you are one of those patrons, I really do want to say thank you for your constant support. You really are the reason I can keep making content like this in the way that I love so much. But either way, guys, thanks for watching. If you're curious, check us out over on Patreon, where you can get early access to videos, help decide future topics, and even get some one-on-one time. And don't forget that every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're over on my Twitch channel breaking down culture and gaming live. But until next time, everyone, this is Gaijin Goomba, signing out.